Hello everyone, my name is Gabby and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super review. This time reviewing episode 123. With Vegeta defeated, Goku attempts to eliminate Jiren, using all of his strategies to try and catch him off guard, but to no avail. Jiren is just that strong. But despite this, Goku isn't going to give up. He powers up to Kaioken, while Vegeta too breaks his limits, and the two of them fight Jiren together. Their poor attempts at coordination might just give them the upper hand. So, what did I like about this episode? Well, first of all, I really enjoyed the fight between Goku and Jiren in this episode, especially because of this might be a coincidence, but the way it was sort of different to how Goku fought Jiren in the 1 hour special. And it's sort of like in the special, we sort of realized that Goku can't exactly beat Jiren in a fair, just sort of test of strength unless he somehow manages to get Ultra Instinct again. So instead here, Goku was sort of like trying to beat Jiren through ways other than just like being stronger than him. He actually does use strategies, and some of those strategies were actually kind of interesting and sort of creative. Like we had the Goku sort of using these sort of key landmines, which Jiren manages to first just sort of jump over when he realizes what's going on, and after that he just sort of walks through them effortlessly anyway. And then second of all, we had that part where Goku does multiple Kiensans to kind of just sort of destroy the ring underneath Jiren, so that Jiren would just be forced out of bounds. Although then it doesn't work because Jiren's just jumping on the falling debris to get back into the ring. It actually reminded me of a classic Dragon Ball tournament fight. Now one character starts coming up with creative ways to get the other character out of the ring, and then the other character manages to counter them in their own unique ways. Except this time it was actually kind of different because it was Goku who was the one who was the aggressor, and it was the opponent who was the one who was trying to counter all their techniques. So it was honestly fun to watch, kind of creative, and once again sort of brings up the idea that in some cases strategy can trump raw power. Also, this episode had some stuff about teamwork, about characters working together, but they also put a few little twists on the idea that were kind of unique and I thought really kind of stood out. In that this episode was kind of talking about teamwork not necessarily working. Like Gohan and 17 try to do teamwork, but it doesn't really work because they've never really fought before, so they don't really know how to coordinate well. And with Goku and Vegeta, they don't coordinate well either because they're just so different, or also because they generally just don't even like working together in the first place. But in Goku and Vegeta's case, it's their lack of coordination that's precisely the thing that's throwing Jiren off and might actually help them, which is also kind of really interesting. Teamwork has normally been used as kind of a bit of a trump card that sort of always wins, but this episode tried to show that it's not always that easy, and sometimes things can be a bit more complicated, and sometimes that can also work out better or worse, and I thought that was really interesting. Also, while I do have some grievances with the way it was executed, I do appreciate that they gave Vegeta a power-up and they didn't do it by just like giving him Ultra Instinct. They actually let Vegeta get stronger while at the same time kind of disassociating himself from what Goku is doing. And I think that's a really nice idea thematically. It's like, literally Vegeta's not necessarily obsessed with trying to catch up with Goku all the time, so he's allowed to get stronger on his own terms that aren't related to Goku's forms or anything like that. You don't necessarily expect to see and kind of understand character growth just by looking at the new forms that the characters are getting, and that's kind of what they ended up doing. As for what I didn't like about this episode, well, I think Vegeta has now set the bar for characters being able to get limit-breaking power-ups at the absolute lowest that it's been. Even if you like the power-up in concept, I think we can all agree in execution it was at least a little bit rushed and felt a little bit half-assed. All Vegeta really needed to do to get a power-up was start thinking about his resolve, about how he really wanted to win and beat Jiren because he wanted to get the Super Dragon Balls to wish back the Universe 6 Saiyans. In isolation, that doesn't sound that bad, but in context, first of all, the fact is Vegeta talking about how he wants to get the Super Dragon Balls to wish back the Universe 6 is basically something he's been saying for like the last 10 episodes, and of course none of those times there was ever something that was big enough to result in a power-up. Second of all, it felt like it was kind of shoved in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the episode without much kind of foreshadowing at all, and was very clearly presented as Vegeta's equivalent to Goku's Kaioken than any kind of like big dramatic new form thing. And third, Vegeta already got a power-up last episode, back when Jiren was mocking his pride and that was causing him to get stronger and make that giant final flash. And honestly, I thought that was a far more unique and far more kind of interesting character moment for Vegeta, but that wasn't the thing that would trigger the new form. Instead, it was just sort of of him thinking about the stuff that he's been thinking about for like the past 20 minutes, except now it's also new form worthy. Like, say what you want about Trunks' power-up, but at least that came from a unique situation where Trunks learned a new piece of knowledge and had to confront feelings that he wouldn't need to confront if he hadn't learned that. It's the same issue I have with Kaba. They try to make these power-ups happen because of a big emotional moment, but then they forget to make the big emotional moment kind of unique and kind of stand out and not feel sort of generic, and it just makes the power-up feel kind of cheap. I mean, at the end of the day, the story seems like it is actually aware that this power-up isn't supposed to really mean anything other than a justification as to how Vegeta is going to be able to fight equally with Goku with Kaioken. In all honesty, it's not really so much of a big deal that it's worth getting upset over, although maybe that's the reason as to why people should get upset over it. Like, Vegeta got a power-up and it kind of doesn't really feel like it matters, or that anybody really cared to do something unique with it. So as for next episode, while the fight with Jiren seems like it's still ongoing, we're going to be taking a bit of a detour to specifically look at the fight with Dispo. Dispo is fighting Frieza, and also it seems like Gohan as well. It's honestly a unique situation because both Dispo and Gohan are characters who could realistically be eliminated at this point because neither of them feel like they have to contribute to the final battle. So the outcome is kind of uncertain, at least unless we get more spoilers, and that makes it kind of interesting. Plus it is also going to be interesting seeing Gohan and Frieza interact once again, because they had a kind of unique relationship back when they were interacting in 108. So that was Dragon Ball Super episode 123. Honestly, it was quite enjoyable. While last episode was mostly dedicated to showing us the things that we knew had to happen, this episode was showing us the things that didn't necessarily have to happen, but the things that we probably would be curious to see could happen. That is, you know, Goku fighting Jiren with strategy and doing that kind of classic Dragon Ball tournament feel. It may have also had a bit of a lazy power-up moment, but that moment doesn't really feel like it's going to actually mean much for the context of the story. So I don't think it really harms much at all. This is probably the part where people start telling me that I'm biased or something, and it's true that Vegeta isn't my favorite character, especially in Dragon Ball Super, but at the same time also, this is my review, this is legitimately what I think. I'm not going to go and pretend that I like something because everybody else likes it, or I think this was a good idea because everyone else thinks it's a good idea. So that was the episode, and that's really all I have to say. I'm actually not really sure what's going to happen in the next few weeks, because we're in a situation where a lot of these characters could realistically get eliminated, besides like Goku and Jiren, because we are at like the final battle. We do only have a few minutes left, and there are only a few competitors left, so we can't say that these characters haven't lasted long enough or they haven't had enough shine or anything like that. Honestly, when I'm uncertain over the future, that's what makes Super a lot more enjoyable to watch. Sadly, that doesn't always happen because spoiler culture, but that's a whole other story altogether. So this is Gabby signing out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye guys!